Hello and welcome to my series on Jesus. This is part 6 called Unexplanation. I think you'll enjoy the series most if you listen to them in order. Maybe they make sense in isolation as well. I'll put the links to the first video in the series down below, and the next video in the series should be at the end of this one. In the last video, I talked about how almost all historians agree that the only and central explanation for why the Jesus phenomenon, let's call it, spread after Jesus' death is that people believed they had witnessed actual miracles, what we today would call the supernatural. In this video, I'm going to dive into our attitude towards the supernatural today and see what you think. All this hocus pocus is hard for many modern Westerners to swallow, and it's therefore mostly played down or ignored. Quieting storms and multiplying fishes were among the things that, as a young man raised in an atheist family by a scientist father, I discounted outright. Like Thomas Jefferson, I regarded the supernatural shenanigans reported in the New Testament as patent myth, ridiculous fairy tales that could only appeal to the minds of children or idiots desperate to avoid facing the eternal void that awaits us all. Clearly, they had been fabricated by Christ's followers to make Jesus look like a superhero. When my dog died, she stayed dead. I had never seen a supernatural phenomenon, nor had anyone I had ever talked to. None of my teachers or textbooks ever gave so much as an ounce of credence to their reality. The supernatural was simply delusional. I have since looked around more. I've come to realize that for all our liberal education and our success using science and math to create technological wonders, we in the modern West live in a certain kind of bubble, as surely as the most remote jungle tribe lives in a different kind of bubble. I've come to realize that modern Western culture, which prides itself on an objective, open-minded outlook on the world, in fact, severely filters reality and ignores massive swaths of human experience. Experiences that our intellectual authorities rule out automatically and without serious inquiry. Our conventional institutions, our schools, universities, hospitals, governments, and news agencies all discount or laugh off worlds of phenomena that, if earnestly explored, would blow our rational minds. This may seem impossible to many intelligent Westerners who see themselves as well-educated and cosmopolitan. Haven't we looked at everything and heard from every Yahoo and whack job on the internet and not found a shred of convincing evidence that some other world exists? Surely we would have heard about any proof of this world by now, with all our probing and searching and exploring. The answer to that objection lies in a central truth that spiritual teachers like Jesus all point to. Perception is not neutral. Our experience of the universe depends on our particular consciousness. This is true at both the individual and collective levels. We always experience the world through a certain complex of filters, most of which we are unaware. Our biology is only the most obvious of them. We are built to register but a tiny portion of the vibrations and particles that bombard and caress us from both inside and out. That dogs can hear sounds and smell odors we can't is only the tip of the iceberg. We live intimately with invisible beings who come and go in astronomical numbers without our notice. From the workings of our 60 trillion cells to the billions of tiny particles called neutrinos that stream through us every second. The other filters on our consciousness are more subtle. They are usually easier to see in others than in ourselves. A truth that Jesus made both graphic and hilarious in his image of a person trying to remove a speck of dust from another's eye without first removing the plank from their own. Our behavior is one of these more subtle filters. When we hold certain beliefs, we behave in ways that reinforce those beliefs. Our reinforced belief then encourages yet more of the behavior that further reinforces the belief, and so on. Such vicious circles can keep even the most intelligent and respected people imprisoned in fish bowls, which they mistake for the universe. The Oxford biologist and outspoken atheist Richard Dawkins, for example, has no doubt intensively explored the literature on genetics and evolution. He is, therefore, qualified to speak to all its richness and subtlety, as well as all the evidence for its validity. We can safely wager that he has not devoted the same number of hours to investigating the voluminous, complex, and compelling literature relating to the paranormal and supernatural, the modes of perception in animistic tribes, the success of shamans, the experiences of mystics, or the miraculous phenomena associated for millennia with Eastern yogis. Dawkins is no different from anyone in this regard. His behavior, his choice of what to sincerely explore, affects his beliefs. These beliefs then limit what he will sincerely explore. Regardless of how many books someone has published or PhDs hang on their walls, no one can investigate all available information or human experience in equal depth. We only have so many hours in a day. In the ocean of reality, we can only do a deep dive in certain places. But even then, we're wearing our own particular scuba mask, a lens tinted with the color of our habits, beliefs, agendas, and expectations. Even when two people are looking with the same human eyeballs in the same place, they can both see different things. This phenomenon, dubbed inattentional blindness, has been demonstrated strikingly in psychological experiments in which one's expectations or focus causes them to miss what is right in front of them. Entire cultures can be conditioned to literally see different things from one another. This insight made a deep impression on the linguist Daniel Everett, who spent decades living with a group of Piraha in the remote Amazon. The Piraha are a resolutely pragmatic people who don't believe anything they or someone they know personally has not witnessed firsthand. They believe in certain spirits, then, only because they see them. In his book, Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes, Everett describes an incident in which the entire village was excitedly pointing at a spirit on the riverbank that he could not see. Everett reflects, quote, "I could never have proved to the Piraha that the beach was empty, nor could they have convinced me that there was anything, much less a spirit, on it. As a scientist, objectivity is one of my most deeply held values. If we could just try harder, I once thought, surely we could each see the world as others see it, and learn to respect one another's views more readily. But as I learned from the Pitaha, our expectations, our culture, and our experiences can render even perceptions of the environment nearly incommensurable cross-culturally." End quote. Everett's insight likely explains why belief in spirits of some kind has been a matter-of-fact part of every culture in the history of humanity, except ours. It's not because all humans were deluded morons until we invented college. It's because our culture encourages us to practice only certain kinds of perception and modes of consciousness, and to dismiss others as crazy. But Everett's insight is also one that no Westerner, regardless of intelligence, could arrive at without significant prior effort. Everett, for example, had to pull up stakes on a comfortable life in the U.S. for the inconveniences and dangers of an extended stay in the remote Amazon. Similarly, to be convinced of the validity of other worlds requires some determination, some initial seed of belief or sincere desire. This is also a truth emphasized in the wisdom teachings of those like Jesus. You're not going to get an English major to take a calculus class. Nor are you likely to convince Richard Dawkins to spend a decade with the Pitaha. Christ put it this way: "Those with ears to hear, let them hear." But the preparing of the soil needn't be some dramatic act or arduous task. The sincere seeker requires nothing more than an open mind. Even faith as small as a mustard seed, Jesus told his followers, quote, "when it is grown, becomes greater than all other herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in its branches." Our beliefs, so small as to be invisible, create worlds. One thing leads to another and grows bigger. In the next video, I talk about a few things in my childhood and past that opened my eyes, or my mind, let's say, and made me appreciate the words of Shakespeare: "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy."